All right, a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Great to see you all. We're following a somewhat different format this morning. Um, well, first of all, welcome to Marjolein for agreeing to be with us. And instead of sitting first and then a Dharma talk, Marjolein's going to talk first, and then we're going to have our sit. And that's because what she will say about Mudita uh, will hopefully affect our sit together. Also, we are going to be recording um, the talk beginning. Well, we actually have begun. So, if you are uncomfortable with the recording of your visual image, please feel free to click on your video icon so that you have audio only. And when we have our question and discussion session at the end, if you do not wish to um, speak your question or comment orally because of privacy reasons, please feel free to enter it in the chat feature and we will be monitoring the chat. So here is Marjoleine's biography. She is originally from the Netherlands and has been practicing insight meditation intensively in Europe, the US, as well as Myanmar, where she was ordained as a Buddhist nun. Marjolein brings both formal practice and practice in daily life to her teachings. She seeks to offer a practical approach to Buddhist concepts and ideas. Her sharing of the Dharma comes from her wish to contribute to the freedom and happiness of all beings. Marjolein lives in Richmond, Virginia, where she is the guiding teacher of the Insight Meditation community, and she is a graduate of the Sati Center's Buddhist Echo Chaplaincy program. This spring, she will graduate from the Insight Retreat Center's Dharma teacher training, as well as the Nature Dharma teacher training. Marjolein?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Um, yeah, just so happy to be here and good to see you all. And yeah, an honor to offer some teachings today to this sangha. And I wanted to mention, yeah, that we'll have first a talk today because the topic is Mudita or sympathetic joy, and then I want to offer a guided meditation on the topic. And so yeah, perhaps we can dive into the topic then and see how that goes. So this word mudita, as the Pali word, is often translated as sympathetic joy and sometimes also appreciative joy. And it's it might feel a little silly to talk about joy when so many difficult things are happening in the world. And it is true that that's happening, and that is not to be dismissed or diminished in any way. And I think that it's actually really important to also talk about the good things that happen in the world, in our own lives, in the lives of those around us, because it is true that both there is this difficulty and there is this goodness in life in general, in whatever level we're looking at. And so sometimes, especially in times like this, with the LA fires, with um, transition of power, with wars all over the world, um, and all sorts of other things happening, it might feel a little bit like there's this hopelessness, this frustration, this anger, sadness. And sometimes it might even, you know, you might even get these feelings of like guilt when some happiness or joy arises. Like, I can't really be happy when there's so much going on. But actually, what we need is both roots. We need to acknowledge the difficulty and be with the difficult emotions that are happening, but we also need to pay attention to the happy and the joyful moments to hold the truth of this um, difficulty. And to be able to hold it, we need to have enough moments of joy in our lives as well, else it's out of balance and kind of get lopsided and hang too much towards this difficult side of life. And so today, this talk on joy, we can see this as a way of balancing things out, a way to also get some resources to help practice some more um, joy or practice wholesome qualities of heart and mind so that they can arise a bit more often in our own stream of consciousness in our hearts and minds. And it's also something that the Buddha actively encourages sometimes. He encourages in some teachings to be a bit more active in our practice. So often when we do vipassana meditation, insight meditation, there is this guidance, this um, teaching on let's just observe what's happening, not interfere, just be with what is here right now, without judgment, just letting it happen, letting it arise and pass. But there are also teachings, like, for example, perhaps you're familiar with the teaching on right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path, or sometimes called wise effort. Those are four great efforts. Yeah, the effort to let go of unwholesomeness, the effort to prevent unwholesomeness from arising, the effort to let wholesomeness arise, and the effort to further cultivate and nourish wholesomeness that is already present. And so those are four ways to be a bit more active in our practice. And today's topic is not about those four great efforts, but those last two efforts about wholesomeness is where mudita comes in. Because mudita, this quality of heart, this appreciative joy, is something that we can cultivate. So it is something we can be active in cultivating wholesomeness. And this also accounts for the other Brahmavihārās, or heavenly abodes, or immeasurables, is what they're also called. So Mudita is part of the four Brahmavihārās, those four heavenly abodes. And the first one is metta, or loving kindness. This one might be the most well-known one. This state of mind and heart that is characterized by warmth and open-heartedness, this benevolence, this friendliness towards all beings. And then the second Brahma Vihara is karuna, compassion in English. This quality of heart and mind that's characterized by feeling this deep care when we are faced with suffering, whether it's our own suffering or that of others. And also this wish to alleviate the suffering. And then mudita is the third of the four Brahmavihārās. And this is the quality of being able to rejoice in happiness and the success of others. It involves celebrating the good fortune of others, celebrating the goodness of others, celebrating wholesomeness and good qualities. And it's also very close to states of heart mind like appreciation and gratitude. And so if we, for example, focus on our own joy and goodness, which is a beautiful thing to do, I'll get back to that. There can also be an appreciation. Maybe there's joy, but there can also be kind of an appreciation or gratitude for our own goodness and our own good fortune. And then the fourth of the Brahmavihārās is upekkha. This is equanimity in English. This quality of staying balanced and equanimous in the face of our experiences, whether it's something difficult or something very joyful, that we don't get swayed too much by either side. It's a very peaceful state of being, very calm and kind of like sometimes this image of being in the center of the storm where it's calm and still. And so perhaps it can be useful to know when there's any teaching about the four Brahmavihārās that these come up in each of them comes up in a specific situation. For example, this metta, this loving kindness, comes up in these general social situations, while compassion comes up when there is suffering present, whether it's in ourselves or others. And then the sympathetic joy is when we encounter happiness, goodness, or good fortune, and equanimity whenever balance is needed. And so it's not that we always should go for sympathetic joy or always should go for compassion or always metta. It's really dependent on the situation or dependent on what we want to cultivate. What sometimes happens is that people try to do metta in a situation where actually compassion is needed because there's suffering present. Or people try to do some joy practice while actually they need more self compassion, for example. And so we can look at that, like what's actually needed in the situation. And so perhaps it's also your experience that that we mostly hear about metta, so the loving kindness, and karuna, the compassion practices. But both mudita and equanimity get a little bit less airtime. But they're all four are very important, and they're all working together in a way because they are basically um, coming up in these different situations. They are suitable for different situations. So depending on the situation, we may want to cultivate one or the other. And we could see that loving kindness, this practice of loving kindness, can be kind of a foundation for the other ones. So perhaps that's why that one gets a lot of airtime. But I think, like especially for mudita, it can be really important to also incorporate that one in your Brahmavihara practices. If you perhaps already have a Brahmavihara practice that you now sometimes do, mudita can really balance the others in the sense that mudita really looks at all that goes well, and it doesn't focus on the things that are not going well, which is also important. But we already do that quite a lot, most of us at least. So it can be really good to balance that a little bit. And so this mudita, this feeling of appreciation or joy or sympathetic joy, um, can actually perhaps be easy to feel at times, especially when when there is like a friend or a loved one who is doing well in some sort of way. Like you can imagine a dear friend who gets better after being ill. Like they feel well and they were ill for a while, and you're like, yes, I'm so happy for you. That's kind of naturally flows like, oh yes, of course I'm happy for you. That's so great that you're feeling better now. Or when a child is playing, this joy of seeing a child playing. Like my nephew back in the Netherlands, my sister's son, he's 6 now, and when I'm back there, when I go back home to the Netherlands, then if I join him for a game or something, like he really likes Uno at the moment, like, he's really like so happy playing, and that brings me so much delight. So, I wouldn't like play Uno by myself probably if it wasn't for others being interested in the game, but seeing him being so happy, that delights me. And so that's kind of this appreciative joy that we can feel, this sympathetic joy. And so those are the more easy cases, but it can also sometimes be a little harder to experience the sympathetic joy for those who we perhaps don't like as much. And that might take a little bit more practice. Um, Like, let's say a colleague gets a promotion that we wanted, then we might actually not feel the joy for it because we wanted it so badly, and now this other person is getting it. That might be a bit more of a challenging situation, and there are other challenging situations, of course. Um, and so the good news is that this quality of mudita, this quality of sympathetic joy, is something that we can cultivate. It's something we can practice. They're called the Brahmavihāra practices. And so, um, even if we're not, you know, as good in feeling this joy in these more challenging situations, then it's good to know that through practice, we might be able to, at some point in the future, also feel joy when it's, previously been really challenging. And we all have this capacity within us to um, to feel um, to feel this joy. And it also, we can see that this is a kind of a natural thing that we are motivated to experience joy because it feels so good, right? It does feel really good to feel joyful. So there's this inner motivation to practice this perhaps. It might be easier, or we might be more naturally inclined or motivated to practice this um, than when we're asked to pay attention to the difficulty or the suffering of others. And the Dalai Lama, he said, this is quite a while ago. He said there are 6 billion people on this planet. If you can share in the joy of others, the likelihood of your own happiness increases by 6 billion. And so, positive thing about having 9 billion people on the planet now is that their odds are increased by 9 billion. So, this is, yeah, this mudita can really be powerful if we take it to heart. And so one of the things that mudita does as we practice this is that it helps us to break free from this tendency to compare ourselves to others. Like when we actually experience this type of joy, then we start to feel more connected to those around us. We feel more generous, and perhaps less self-centered. And we can feel really uplifted by the joys of others. And over time, this illusion of the separation between us and others begins to fade. Um, this separateness feels that we're less separate. Um, we're all it's all good. If this other person gets something good, it's good. If I get something good, it's good. Like there's no separateness. It's not like this other person doesn't deserve it or I don't deserve it in that way. And so it becomes that other people's happiness um, is ours to share, and we no longer have to separate ourselves from these others. And so I always find it very helpful to see that the Brahmavihārās and also Mudita is actually a process of purification. So just like we purify ourselves when we do metta or compassion or equanimity, and Mudita can serve that same role. Because what happens when we do Brahmavihāra practice and also Mudita is that it will bring up that which is not in line yet with that quality of heart and mind. It might bring up, for example, what we call the enemies, quote unquote enemies of the Brahmavihāra, in this case Mudita. And has each Brahmavihāra has both near and far enemies. And so the near enemy of Mudita is often something that we confuse with true joy, but isn't quite the same. It might be comparison, we already mentioned, a sense of insincerity or even hypocrisy. And we might also mistake the joy that is tied to we mistake joy that comes with identification. Like if there's this thing like, oh, my team won or my child succeeded, there's this identification with the joy for this team or this child. And so um, if I tie, for example, with my nephew, like, oh, it's my nephew that is this joy. Like if I feel that really strongly about it's really about him and it's really my nephew, really identified with that, then it feels a little different than just kind of an open joyfulness um with just the joy of playing with my nephew, with this child. So maybe you can feel that difference a little bit there. Like if it's because it's my nephew, it's different than just engaging with the joy of the moment. And so that's some little bit about the near enemies. The far enemy is the opposite of mudita. In this case, is envy. And so when we practice with mudita, then these mind states can arise. And there could also other mind states that can arise. Anything can arise when we practice the Brahmavihārās. But um, these are some ways that um, we can be some that are more common that we can pay attention to. And so when something arises that is not in line with mudita, with this joy, and we don't feel this joy, let's say we tried to practice mudita for this being, and they're having some success in their life or some good fortune or some good qualities, but we're actually feeling envious of them, then that means that actually the practice is working, because the practice is a purification practice. And so when something arises that is not in line with the joy, then we know that is the practice is doing its work. We know there's purification happening. And those are the areas where we can look at, oh, some work needs to be done, some old conditioning is coming up. It's really useful, a useful sign that we can use to work further um, on purifying our own hearts and minds. That's what the practice is about. And sometimes these little voices come up when we practice mudita for someone, like, what about me, or I want it too, or something like that. That is a little bit of this envy. And I experience that especially when there is something that I also really want. And like a simple example that could happen when you are meditating in person somewhere, or perhaps even on Zoom. That you're sitting down to meditate and feeling really good about practice, just normal. But then, as you settle in, you see this other practitioner, and they're sitting just so calm, and they're breathing so effortlessly, and it just looks like they're having such a calm, tranquil meditation. And without realizing it, you begin to compare, like, oh, how come they look so peaceful? Why I can't feel, I don't feel anything like that, or I wish I could meditate like that, or some voice like that comes up. And so instead of feeling this joy and this happiness for them, feeling tranquil, even though we might not even know for sure what they're feeling, um, and then you might start to feel this envy. And you might even catch yourself thinking, like, well, if they would struggle a little bit, then I would feel not so bad about myself. Like it's a little bit of perhaps ill will coming in, even like this little bit of, like, yeah, I hope they they struggle, so I don't have to feel that. It's very human, very uh, normal that these kind of thoughts and emotions arise when we try to do this practice, or even just when we're going about our lives. We notice, oh wait, there's not really appreciative joy here. There's more envy. So there's a little room for development here, for cultivation. We can really like take this lightheartedly, like laugh about ourselves, like, oh, this is so interesting. Um, the mind talking to me like this, and not taking it too personally can be really helpful. We all have these voices in our head. And so really taking this as an opportunity when things like that arise, an opportunity for growth, and that it shows us where there is a little bit of attachment happening, or wanting things to be a certain way, or there's a little bit of envy, or a little bit of hypocrisy, or whatever form it takes. Simply noticing it, allowing that emotion or feeling to be there, so that eventually it might pass. And sometimes we have to see this come up like over and over again. Like again, this feeling of envy arises for this same kind of situation, like seeing the other peaceful meditator or something, over and over again. You're like, oh, I want that too. I want that too. Um, and then by seeing it over and over again, sometimes 100 times, 1,000 times, it might release at some point, creating some space for actually genuinely being happy for this other person to be tranquil or calm or peaceful. And so it really takes a lot of patience. If there is a sticky place, it can take a lot of patience if there is a sticky place in the Mudita practice. And that's okay. We don't um, have to be good at it right away. That's why it's a practice. Often we have been cultivating these kind of patterns of envy and comparison, etc., for years and years. So let's take it easy on ourselves that they're still here and that we're working through them. And so often, when we start off with practice, we don't even realize that these patterns are there, right? And um, we also tend to not even recognize the painfulness of these kind of patterns. Like when this envy comes up, for example, then it's it's usually us who is suffering, right? It's painful to feel this envy, and it's really helpful to tune into the painfulness. Often, um, that helps us, helps the mind in the background to learn from the situation. Like, oh, this is really painful. Just acknowledging the unpleasantness of it, and recognizing that it's us who is suffering, and the other person that we're envious of probably just continues on with their life, kind of unaware of anything that happens inside of us. And so the good news is that, that we can train this, and that slowly but steadily we'll work through these patterns. And that it's really helpful to see that this is a purification process. That it doesn't have to be done all right away within one sit or something like that. It's just more of like a loosening of the grip of the enemies. It's so-called enemies of Mudita. In a way, the word enemies might not be like the most helpful helpful word, because it's just kind of more of a sign that there's some work to do or something to work through. And so, this meditation practice, or the way that we are often doing the Brahmavihāra practices in this scene, this Vipassana meditation scene, is that is taught by the monk Buddhaghosa in the commentary called the Visuddhimagga. This monk lived in the 5th century in Sri Lanka, and he wrote this it's basically a meditation manual, the Visuddhimagga. And in that meditation manual, Buddhaghosa teaches us to practice the Brahmavihārās by reciting phrases. Like you might be familiar with metta phrases, like may you be well, may you be happy, may you be at ease, and these kind of phrases, reciting those. And so, in the same way, Buddhaghosa also offers phrases for the cultivation of mudita. And often Western teachers have changed those phrases to be a bit more suitable for the Western minds. Um, And so when we do practice with the reciting of the phrases, um, it can be helpful to start noticing if feelings of envy or comparison or hypocrisy arise, or other things that might arise. Can be ill will or anger or sadness or whatever it is. And when they arise, whatever kind of feeling that's not mudita, then there are a few options that you can try. And so one is um, to recognize, okay, in this situation, perhaps like you're trying to feel some mudita for your colleague who got this promotion that you wanted, and so you might recognize, okay, maybe this is too high of a bar right now. Acknowledge it for yourself, and go to find an object and by a being that it's really easy to feel some mudita for. Uh, like children are often easy, or like pets even, being happy for your pet being happy, or your child or grandchild or nephew being happy, or niece, you know. Um, Perhaps a friend who, just got married to their love of their life, or, whatever is more easy for you. Um, you can, like, with these Brahmavihāra practices, it can be super handy or helpful to start with easy, easy beings, and then work our way up to more difficult beings, more challenging situations, so that we start to get the hang of it, and then start to expand it, and then we can, when some of the quote unquote enemies come up, we can see if we can work with them, or move back to an easier category or an easier situation or being. And so the other option that you have, instead of moving to something more easy, is to start using your normal vipassana practice. So just basically, if you're doing a formal mudita practice, just switching to vipassana or to insight meditation for a bit. Really using the practice like them being mindful of your feelings. How does it feel in the body to feel this, let's say, envy again, or this comparison? Um, like, what kind of way does it express in the body? Um, is there tightness in the chest, or like a fluttering in the throat, or whatever it is? Um, and often it can be really helpful to stay with the bodily experience of the emotion or the feeling, because that really grounds us usually. Because we're often so engulfed in the story, especially when a practice like this other being um, has something that you really want, or and then you can get really caught up in like, oh, but I want that or whatnot. And then just coming back to the body. Oh, what does it feel like in the body? Not paying attention too much to the story around it. So really allowing those feelings in the body to arise. And they don't have to go away, they don't have to be different. I'm just seeing them as signs that the practice is working. This is a purification practice, and okay, some purification has arisen, and it's probably unpleasant, but just acknowledging that. And sometimes it helps me to really think of it in this way, like, oh, just reminding myself, yeah, this is actually good. I mean, it's not pleasant, I don't like it, but it's good that it's come up so that it has a chance to move through me, chance to be purified, a chance to work with it and see this old pattern, this old conditioning that has arisen. And sometimes it can help me to see, like, whatever is and seems to be like an obstacle to me probably is the way. The obstacle is the way. The obstacle is the practice right now. And so to reframe it a little bit for myself, okay, this is my practice right now, this obstacle. And so the traditional Brahmavihāra practice um, follows usually a specific order of beings to direct the meditation towards. And for each Brahmavihāra, this order is a little different, um, because the Buddha Gosa, this monk from the 5th century, he identified, at least in his time, what was the easiest category for the people, and then gradually moved towards more challenging categories. And for Mudita, he identified the easiest category to be a dear person who is experiencing some happiness, some goodness, some good fortune. And then after that, the sequence of categories of beings is as follows: then a benefactor, then a neutral person, then a difficult person, and then all living beings. So that's the standard for Mudita, starting with the being that is like the dear being that has some form of goodness or joy in their lives, and then um, the benefactor, then the neutral person, the difficult person, and then all living beings. And so you might notice here that the self is not included. um, and according to this monk Buddhagosa, the practice of mudita does not typically include ourselves in the categories. But there are a lot of contemporary teachers who do choose to add ourselves to the list. I think also it can be such a valuable way to cultivate this appreciation for our own goodness and wholesomeness. And it might be that this was something more present in the day of Buddhagosa in that culture. I remember hearing a story that the Dalai Lama was asked about self-hatred, and that he didn't understand what that meant. He was like, what are you talking about? Like earlier on when he just came to the West. And he really had to be taught like what self-hatred meant. And so um, it might be that at the time of Buddhagosa, this is just my own guess. I don't know. I haven't done any research on that, of course, but um, perhaps it was kind of a given that there could be joy for yourself, because of course you're joyful for yourself. Like why wouldn't you? Like that for the Dalai Lama, there was like a non-question. Like why wouldn't you be joyful for yourself? Um, but in our culture, Western culture, it's often something that's more difficult. So something that we actually might need to cultivate. And some of us might have this tendency to for self-hatred, for self-loathing, for being um, like even feeling guilty sometimes if we feel some happiness for ourselves. And so that might actually be quite a journey to learn how to cultivate self-joy, happiness for ourselves, joy for ourselves, gratitude, appreciation for ourselves, and for our own good qualities, for our own inner goodness, um, and for our own good fortune. And so sometimes even people think that cultivating this mudita for ourselves, that it leads to some type of vanity. But actually, I think it's quite the opposite. It helps us to become more kind and appreciative of ourselves, and it can enhance our ability to feel joy for others and their success. Because when we are content um, with ourselves, with our own lives, with our own goodness, then it becomes much more easy to also celebrate others' happiness and achievements. So we like it's if we feel good in our own skin, so to speak. We feel good in our own hearts, minds. Then we're no longer that threatened by the success of others, because we are so at ease with our own lives, our own successes, our own good fortune. And then Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese monk who passed away, he beautifully puts it like this: We rejoice when we see others happy, but we also rejoice in our own well-being. How can we feel joy for another if we don't feel joy for ourselves? I think that beautifully points to how this joy for ourselves is an important basis for feeling joy for others. So being aware of our own strengths and our own weaknesses, then um, it creates a more balanced and grounded sense of self. And we often focus on our own flaws, but this practicing of mudita for ourselves to helps us to balance things out a little bit more. It brings attention to our good qualities, leading to a healthier self-image. And so, as you can like tell from my little excursion here, is that I like to include ourselves in the mudita practice, even though Buddha goes, I didn't include it because I think just as much as we need the self-compassion that that's also taught a lot nowadays, we actually might also need this deeper sense of self joy, this genuine rejoicing in our own goodness and good qualities. And then a lot of Western teachers include the self in the Mudita practice in the place between the difficult person and all beings, which is because it is so difficult for a lot of people. So ourselves come after the difficult person uh, because of the challenge that it poses for a lot of people. If it's really easy for you, you're welcome to include it earlier on in the sequence. That's really okay too. This is more based on that there are a lot of people for whom it is difficult. And so when we do this practice, then we might not always feel anything right away. We might feel, just very dry, nothing happening. It feels like, you know, I'm not, what am I doing? Nothing seems to happen. We might even feel, these some quote unquote enemies of envy or hypocrisy or comparing mind. We might feel anger. We might feel sadness. Um, we might feel frustration. Whatever it is, it's all really, really completely natural when we start practicing. I think that when we feel these things, it's really important to remember that this practice is about intention. It's our intention that runs quietly in the background, kind of guiding the practice in a way. The intention matters more than whether or not we are feeling the joy in the moment, because it's the intention that plants the seeds for the joy to rise at some point, perhaps in the future. And it's the intention that sets the conditions for the next moments of our meditation and for future meditations. And so, when we practice, our simple role is to plant the seeds. And each time that we offer these phrases, um, it's like watering the seeds, planting the seeds, watering them, letting the light of awareness shine on them. And then in time, the seeds will sprout and blossom. And it's really hard to predict when that will be. And it might be, a minute, it might be months, it might be years. And so I've heard stories of people describing how it takes years for Brahmavihāra practice in general to land for them. And that they often kind of do it out of obligation on a retreat or something because it's offered. But and then at some point it might click. There might be something actually happening for them, even though they always thought that it was just really dry and not happening for them. So patience again, really being patient with ourselves, and knowing that we all start from a different place. Some of us might already have this whole mudita forest, basically, and others might just start out with an empty lot right now. So it might be very different places where we're coming from. And so when we meditate in a little bit, I'll offer the phrases, but I think the meditation won't be recorded, so I'll just name them here right now. And so some of the phrases that we can use for mudita practice are, for example, I am happy for your happiness. I take joy in your good fortune. May your goodness or your good fortune continue and grow. May your good fortune or joy bring you even greater ease and freedom. And for self, we can add something like these other phrases. We can also put them in the I form, and then we can add something like "May I value my own good qualities." Can be a nice one too for some people to really feel that there are good qualities. We all have good qualities to value them. And the nice thing about all these Brahmavihāra practices is that we can um, be free to be creative with our phrases. So if the phrases are not really resonating for you, you can come up with your own phrases. You can see like, oh, what does resonate for me? You can adjust them a little bit or make different phrases. So it's really a creative process. We can use it in a way that works for us. And also good to know we can stay with these easier categories of beings or easier situations, for example, as long as you want to. There's no rush to move to any of the difficult beings if you don't feel that's helpful for you. With this Brahmavihara practices, we are allowed to go where it's easy. We don't have to challenge ourselves too much unless we want to, unless we feel like it's nice to work through those difficulties or things that come up. You feel like, oh, that can be really helpful for my practice, for example. And then I also want to mention that this using of the phrases is just like one way to practice mudita. There's that Buddha Gosa came up with, but there's another approach that is more from the actual suttas or the from the Buddha, which is called the radiating practice. And I will read you a quote from the Buddha, and this one is the quote for sympathetic joy, but the same quote also is for the other Brahmavihāras. It's just that then it says metta or compassion or something instead of sympathetic joy. And so the Buddha says, one abides, pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with sympathetic joy, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth. So above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to oneself. One abides, pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with sympathetic joy, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. So this sounds really good. But it's does suggest that we have this quality already kind of in our heart and it's already ready um to be shown through the whole world. So it kind of assumes that we can do that right away. We can just radiate that out. But for most of us, that's might not be that simple. And so perhaps that's why Buddha Gosa came up with these phrases so that we can start practicing with these different categories, or we can start easy and then go to a little bit more difficult over time. And so I think that for most people, it's easiest to just use the phrases like Buddha Gosa suggests. Um, but if you can radiate the mudita out just like that, and it's fantastic. And then feel free to practice mudita in that way. There's no one who says like, oh, you need to practice with the phrases. And also, when you, for example, you can start with phrases and then you feel it flowing. Um, then you can also have the option to just continue radiating. To just start radiating if you wish. You can also just continue with the phrases, whatever feels like is helpful for you, supportive, or what feels most resonant. So it's really about, supporting your practice. And then there's no right or wrong way here. And so this quality of mudita can be a real resource, I think, in our daily lives. If we can integrate this into our practice, into our daily lives, it can be such a resource. Because it really helps us to start seeing this goodness around us, seeing all the good things that are happening, and rejoicing in them, in whatever's happening around us and in our own hearts and minds, in our own lives. Had to really balance this tendency to focus on all the things that are not going well. It might shift our perspective a bit as well on life if we um, incorporate seeing goodness as well. And the Buddha, he also mentions in the suttas, um, whatever one frequently thinks and ponders upon, that becomes the inclination of the mind. So when we frequently think and ponder upon goodness and joy, then that becomes the inclination of the heart and mind. Often the translation behind the word mind, chitta. Chitta is the Pali, is often translated as mind, but it actually means heart and mind. Both are included in that word. And so this goodness and joy can become the inclination of the heart and mind. And so this practice of mudita can really help us to cultivate the more goodness and joy in our heart. And so I want to end the talk with a quote by another quote by the Buddha. He says, "If it were not possible to cultivate the good, then I would not ask it of you." So, yeah, so we can start with the meditation soon. But before we do, I want to just mention, or just want to ask if there's any questions about the talk, about the practice, perhaps before we delve into that part. I guess I'll put them in the chat.
Marjolein, would you like to ring a bell for our meditation, or do you prefer that we ring the bell?
Oh, I can ring the bell. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's not common to have a like a little stretch break, or is it okay to have a little stretch break for people, Stephen? Yeah,
Sure,
pretty well.
whatever. It's fine.
Okay, let's have a couple minutes stretch break, and I'll be back. 5 or 4 to the hour. I'll see you in a couple minutes. So welcome back. We'll start with the meditation. And so the meditation will be on Mudita. So I'll start with some just like settling in and just being present, and then we'll do some Mudita practice. And so let's um let's settle into our meditation posture. For as far as you haven't already, if you want to adjust a little bit, noticing that the body is sitting here. And Buddha encourages to just simply know that you're sitting. Simply know the posture you're in. Perhaps some of you are laying down. Simply know that you're laying down. And perhaps noticing how the body is contacting the surface beneath it. And perhaps where the feet are contacting the floor or a meditation mat. Places where the legs are touching the surface beneath it. Where the buttocks is touching the surface. Noticing the contact. Noticing the contact of the hands, perhaps the contact of the hands with each other or with your legs. And when inviting the body to relax, a simple, we use a simple phrase, simple wish for that. May the body relax. May there be some ease. May the body soften. And sometimes it can be helpful to invite specific areas to relax and soften. May the belly soften and relax. May the shoulders soften. May the face relax and soften. Well, let's notice what it's like in the heart area right now, in the center of the chest. And perhaps putting a hand there can be supportive, touch into that area. It could be that there's a warm, open, or glowing energy, or perhaps it's more closed off or tight. Perhaps you don't feel much there. All is fine, it's okay. It's just about tuning into what's there right now. Honest openness to receive what's in the heart area. And when you can do this practice of mudita, sympathetic joy, from the heart area. We can begin by bringing to mind a dear being that has some good fortune, some joy, some good qualities, or any of those. Someone, some dear being in our lives. Could be a human being, family member, friend. Could be a pet, a child. Could be someone you just know, you know some memory where they're happy and having a good time, or and they're in a good space. And then you can offer them the Mudita phrases. I am happy for your happiness. Like this word happiness, you can replace with good fortune or joy or good qualities. I am happy for your happiness. And then in those silent moments, we can just repeat the phrase with our from this place of the heart directed towards this being that we've chosen. I take a joy in your good fortune. And you can remove the good fortune and replace it with something that's more appropriate in this situation. Goodness or happiness. I take joy in your good fortune. May your joy continue, may it grow. Every praise being a little seed planted. No need for anything to happen right now. Knowing that we're planting seeds. And perhaps you do feel the joy. And enjoy the joy. Enjoy the happiness, the appreciation. May your joy lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. For your good fortune or good quality. May it lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. Then relax into the practice. Sometimes these Brahmavihāra practices can feel like we're doing a lot. Can relax the effort a little bit and just let it be a soft and gentle practice. Light. May your joy lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. And let go of this being. And then Buddha Gosa's list. Next being would be a benefactor. We want to move on to the neutral person so we can experience a slightly more difficult being. See what it's like in our hearts. And so we can bring to mind a neutral being, someone we don't really know that well, that we don't really feel strong positive reaction to nor a strong negative reaction. It could be like a store clerk or a neighbor you sometimes see walking around that you don't really know, or some other neutral being. And then we can perhaps imagine that this being enjoys things at times as good fortune or has good qualities. And perhaps if they're like a store clerk or someone in a profession like that, that they're serving other beings in a way, which is a good quality that they have to be of service. And so everyone has good qualities, so we can tap into that. Perhaps um, you know that they're if it's a neighbor that they have a house over their head, so being happy about that. And so we can offer the phrases stepping into knowing that there's some good fortune perhaps in their lives in some level. Mm. I am happy for your happiness, your good fortune, or your good inner qualities. Offer this phrase to this neutral being. Take joy in your good fortune. Letting practice be easeful and joyful. Sometimes changing the phrases. Like, oh, I'm really happy for you, or oh, great that XYZ is happening for you. This is great, or like something that feels more like natural to you. You can use that too. These are phrases or kind of suggestions help you get going. May your joy continue, may it grow. May your good qualities continue, may they grow. May your joy or your good fortune or your good qualities lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. Perhaps you can notice in your heart if there's a difference between this neutral being and the easier being, the dear being that we've practiced with before this being. Perhaps there is a difference, perhaps there isn't. Perhaps it feels a little drier, or even some of the enemies might come up envy or comparing mind, hypocrisy, noticing. Noticing what's arising in the heart, in the mind. And if needed, you can use either the easier being again, going back there, or using the Vipassana practice, allowing these emotions, these feelings to be there. recognizing the purification that they're offering you in a way. This quote unquote obstacle that is the way. Well, there's just joy flowing. Noticing that. Enjoying the flow of the joy. Your joy, your good fortune, your goodness will lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. No, letting go of this neutral being, bringing to mind ourselves, skipping the difficult being in the order of categories that Buddhas have suggested and moving on to the self. Again, perhaps feel the presence of your body here sitting, the awareness of being here in the body here. You can use an image of yourself in a happy place where you felt happy or you were having good fortune in your life in some way and something went really well for you, or you really noticed your good qualities. Maybe you were helping someone, generosity, helping others. We can offer praise to ourselves. Phrases: I am happy for my happiness, or my good fortune, or my inner qualities, good inner quality. I take joy in my good fortune. May my joy, happiness, good fortune continue. May it grow. May my good qualities continue. May they grow. Perhaps it's good to know that all these Brahmavihāra practices, including Mudita, Not so much about that is actually resulting in our wish that our wish comes true. It's more about cultivating this genuine wish for happiness, this genuine wish for joy. It's cultivation of the joy in our hearts. That's what it's about, not so much about the result of our genuine wish. May my joy, good fortune, or goodness lead to ever increasing ease and freedom. I appreciate my own wholesome qualities. I appreciate my own goodness, my own good qualities. And then letting go, this Mudita practice, and touching into the heart area again, noticing how it is in the heart in this moment. No right or wrong, just a noticing. Might be different from the start of the practice in any direction. And so just noticing that, opening to what's here right now. No need for it to be different. Noticing in general. How is your system? How is your body? How's your mind? Overall experience right now. Just noticing. Being aware of the full present moment as it arises. last few minutes of the meditation, perhaps you can notice or cultivate some appreciation for yourself for being here today, practicing this practice of mudita, of joy, really a practice that can benefit our hearts, appreciating that you've done that for yourself, appreciating the others that are present because of the Sangha, we can be together because of all others, can practice in community, even though we're in different places. We're all in the same Zoom room, practicing together, creating a virtual space together. Appreciation for this space, holding the space all together. Because of every one of us, there is this virtual space. We can end the sit by sharing of the merit, sharing of the goodness. Through practicing together, there's this inherent goodness arising just by our intention to practice, our intention to listen to the Dharma, to discuss the Dharma, independent of how the practice actually goes or how we actually feel. This goodness arises purely based on this intention for practicing and for engaging with the Dharma. And this goodness can be shared with all beings everywhere. And by sharing it, we multiply it. And just like if you share an idea, it multiplies. So may this goodness of our practice together, our engagement with the Dharma together, be of benefit to all beings everywhere. May it contribute to their well-being and happiness, just like it contributes to ours. Thank you, everyone, for being here together. And so, I think we have some time for sharing and reflections and questions, perhaps. Is that right, Stephen, or is there something else first?
Well, we usually end in just a few minutes, but if we're willing to stay longer, that would be great, and maybe we could just do only a few questions or comments.
Oh, okay, I thought it was an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours, this meeting.
Oh, it used to be, but we've changed it to 90 minutes, but it's fine to run over.
Okay, people can leave if they need to. There's, yeah, you're welcome if you had other plans. Yeah, but I'm happy to stay and answer any questions or engage in sharing. Or, yeah.
I had an observation, if I could speak. So, I'm Molly. When you first started talking about, feeling appreciative joy for others, I've been practicing this, for a little while, and I thought, yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good, even for some of the hard people in my life. But then I realized that I think sometimes I almost like convince myself, well, I'm happy they got that because I didn't really want it anyways. It's kind of that rationalization thing that you do. And then I later thought, though, when you're talking about having joy for yourself, and I do lead a pretty joyful life, I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm joyful even if I don't have that. So I've kind of been, kind of playing with that in my mind. So I just wonder if you have any any thoughts about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Molly. I think it can be such a great exploration to look at those little, motivations or voices. Like, oh, what's it actually coming from? Is it a rationalization, or is there actually joy, or is the combination perhaps? Like, there can be a mixed bag of a rationalization and actually some joy being there. And so to really start to tease that apart a little bit, and start keep you on being curious about it. Um, so yeah, it sounds like you're curious about it and you're exploring it. So that sounds really great. And there's no like clear like answer to it or in any way. Like it's really an exploration. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the talk. I I noticed that it was easier to wish to be happy for uh, people that are dear to me or a benefactor or even I think a difficult person, but the neutral person, it was more difficult because I couldn't bring up anything specific other than what felt like sort of almost platitudes. So I don't know if you have any suggestions for the neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that is it can be difficult because we don't know them and we don't know their good fortune or how they're how they might in what way they might be happy or experiencing good qualities or so I tried a little bit during the meditation to guide in that direction like oh maybe we know if they're a store clerk at least we know that they're of service to others so that's a good quality right we can be joyful about that or we can imagine them being part of our um if they're part of our neighborhood we might know like oh um, there's these kind of houses in the neighborhood or apartments or whatnot, and we know they have an apartment somewhere or that's good, So that's I try to like give a few examples like that. So that can be a way. And otherwise, it's just kind of like just see what bubbles up when you try it, and if it feels too dry, like just try something else. Um, like try it even a difficult person, like if you can be with a difficult person that's supposed to be more difficult than a neutral person. So, if you can be with a difficult person and feel joy for them, um, that's great. That's great. So, and then practice with that and as your edge perhaps or and then every once in a while bring in a neutral person and see how that lands and how it kind of like sometimes trying one thing, sometimes trying another thing. Um kind of playing around and perhaps after some time the neutral being becomes easier because you find a way in like for me the way in is to imagine a little bit like I just did but there might be different ways in that might work for you um, just by keep on trying it and seeing what happens and being creative basically it's such a creative practice. Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
asking.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I see Kason raised her hand.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say thank you for the talk, and I especially appreciated, or at least if I understand this correctly, that when comparison or other near enemies arise, and when I see that, then that's validation that the practice is working. Because I've always thought that I'm not very good at mudita because I'm constantly comparing. So I found your words there very encouraging. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really for me also very helpful to see it in that way. It's the practice is working because this comparing mind, like we all have that, like um, that is what needs to be purified in that moment. Like that's our edge. Um, and so often I find it helpful to engage a little bit with something like where comparing mind comes up, and then switch to something that's easier, and then engage a little bit again with whatever brings the comparing mind up, and then switch to the easier again. And so kind of like bringing in the edge, and if it gets too much and it gets too like um like struggling with it, and it feels like really like there's only comparing and like unpleasant feeling, and there's no joy at all, then moving back to a little bit of joy again, and then going back and forth can be really helpful to work with that. That's one way, and another way is to use the vipassana practice and really start feeling like, oh, the comparing mind feels like this. It feels like this is the effect in the body. This is the unpleasantness of it. This is how it works out for me, and this is um, to really becoming aware of that and how it influences us can be super helpful in the purification part. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And indeed, it is that it's working. It is a sign that it's working because it's bringing things up, and that's great. Like we can be actually rejoicing in the fact that it's bringing up things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. It's Stephen.
There, for me, there's a difference between uh, mudita in a group situation or with just one or two other people. So, for example, if we're doing our regular Saturday morning meeting in central San Diego in person and someone says good news, then there's a lot of energy and people will, laugh or clap or say wonderful, congratulations, etc. But for my own practice, if I'm just with, say, one person, a friend or a relative, and they tell me good news, if I do not respond verbally, then they may assume that I'm not feeling good for them. So I have learned to try to always say congratulations or wonderful or great. And if it is appropriate, to also extend a hug or to embrace the person. But the key is to respond in a conspicuous and easily understood way rather than having the mudita be only internal.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You're really speaking to when it's actually like someone's actually right in front of you, experiencing something great, good. Yeah. So that speaks maybe a little bit also to social norms um, and and also perhaps like for some people that might come really natural to be exuberant or be really joyful in their manners, right? And how they speak, and they might speak naturally from this place of sympathetic joy. And so it might be different for all of us. Some of us might need a little bit of a like a nudge from ourselves, like, oh yeah, let me engage in this behavior, and others might do that more naturally. So yeah, um, that sounds great how you're doing that, and that you're taking that into account when you're in with a person one on one. That yeah, that you're expressing the mudita and not only keeping it internally. Yeah, and so the practice itself is usually when you do a formal mudita practice, you're usually just basically sitting um, on your cushion or your chair, and you're with your eyes closed, and you're offering this to these beings that you imagine. Um, but you can, this is a practice that is so easily be carried to daily life, where we can be joyful for beings that we encounter. Like you're saying, like someone that tells you something that's going really great for them. And if it's a Buddhist practitioner and they know about mudita, like you can say, "Oh, mudita for you." That I often do that with my Dharma friends, like, "Oh, so much mudita for you." Um, and if it's not a Buddhist practitioner, you can just mention, "Oh, I'm so happy for you. This sounds really great." And it's if it's not like that, you can like if it's not like that, you can say something and you can still internally feel the mudita, of course. If it's like you see a child playing on the street or something, or a dog happy running after a ball or something, and you can feel the mudita there and just, it's rejoicing in these little moments that we all kind of encounter in our daily lives. Can be such a great practice for our day-to-day life, not only on our kushi. Mm, Health living, people leaving, yeah. And welcome for any other comments or questions. And otherwise, well, we can also round it out, but just giving one more moment. See, see if there's anything bubbling up for you. Yeah. Well, great. Thanks everyone. This was wonderful to be with you all. To yeah, Stephen, do you want to say some last words? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Let's talk about Donna for a couple of minutes. Some of you have actually been to retreats with Gil and Marjolein, and others of us have listened to many Dharma talks by Gil, who is one of Marjolein's teachers. So I found this Dharma talk or essay from Gil just this morning, and it's just 2 paragraphs. If there were no dana or any other means of support or generosity, most teachers would not be able to teach more than a minimal amount. Teaching takes up a lot of time, not all of which is obvious to people who attend retreats or weekly sitting groups. In addition to the actual time teaching, there can be time spent traveling, arranging logistical details, study preparations for Dharma talks, and follow up counseling. In addition, teaching retreats is intensely demanding, often requiring time to recover. Those teachers and centers whose primary means of support has been teaching or relying on an economic system that is radically different from that of most conventional careers. The Dana system has no provisions for health and disability insurance, no retirement benefits, no sick leave, no social security, no paid time for a vacation, no sabbatical. The Dana system is based on trust rather than any institutional form of security. A common Dharma phrase that supports this trust has been the Dharma protects those who protect the Dharma. And many factors support this trust. A teacher's integrity is important because Dana offers a clear opportunity for feedback. In addition, the teaching charisma, parami, of individual teachers can have some bearing on the amount of dana that they receive. So, to make things easy for us, there are several ways that we can express generosity. We can go to Marjoleine's website, which is brightdharma.org, brightdharma.org, or you can just type into your field in your browser, brightdharma.org/donate. Or if you go to your chat feature before the meeting ends, there are 3 identical links which will take your device directly to Marjoleine's page for Donna.
Thank you, Stephen. And yeah, so happy that we're all here and that we've been able to practice together, and any donations are gratefully accepted. So I think that's it then for today. Yeah,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
And you can welcome to say goodbye. Yeah, to unmute and say goodbye. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.